So this film, yes, Jayne is my mom's first cousin, and I've heard about Jayne Kennedy when I was a kid, but I wasn't alive when she was knocking it all down, so I had to hear about everything from other people who were there in the 1970s and early 80s when she was just, so I didn't know what it felt like. I just knew what it felt like to look at people who were and as a result, I got this curiosity when I decided to go into filmmaking, which was about, I would say, in high school, I knew I wanted to be an anchor woman, a news reporter, a photojournalist. I knew I was going to go and pursue Miss America. But I didn't realize all those things were kind of influenced by my family really emphasizing how significant Jayne Kennedy was to them. And so when I went to film school, I reached out to her, I think like maybe my second year at NYU, and I went to Howard Film School also. My second year at NYU, and I was like, I'm here, Spike Lee's my professor, I'm gonna make a biopic about you, let me just figure out how. And I had no idea really like all, I wanted to make like what's love got to do with it type of film, for her. And after that, I just kind of like didn't, I had to go learn how to be a filmmaker, a proper filmmaker, and all that. And then there was a grant that I found in 2019 for a sports-related topic. And I just thought, I was like, I want to be the first Black woman to become a sportscaster. And sportscasting is the job. Like, everyone wants to have this job. And it's like the hardest job in television to get. And it's hard for everyone. It's hard for rich white men to get this job. Okay, this is not an easy job to get. And so I was like, well, who was the first Black woman to do it? And I did not know it was Jayne Kennedy. I did not know at all. But when I Googled it, her name popped up. I'm like, what doesn't she do? Like, she's the first Black woman for a myriad of things, including she's the first Black woman spokesperson for the Coca-Cola brand, as you saw in the second film. She was the spokesperson for TAG. And that's a very, they did give those jobs to Black women. She's also the first Black woman to win Miss Ohio or Miss USA competition. So I called her up, and I expected to have a story that was like, yes, I was the first Black person, and they looked at me on their shoulders, and it was so wonderful, and it was a 5-hour phone call of just always getting so close to getting the job, and then taking it away from her, finding every new reason. And so essentially the only, I have a feature, there is a featured version of this film on my hard drive. Like, I have all the footage, we interviewed her for 2 days, but on the, I had to boil it down to 15 minutes for this grant, which was sponsored by Arizona State Global Sports Program and Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival. They're the ones who created the opportunity. And I had to make a 15-minute film, but there is a featured version of it, and some of the stuff that's left out, essentially, CBS NFL Today wanted Phyllis George back. And because she was married to John Y. Brown, the governor of Kentucky, and they wanted access to the Kentucky Derby. Yes, and Phyllis George was tired of being a housewife. She was like, yeah, I'm gonna be the first lady of Kentucky. And she was like, this is cool and all, but I was just a sportscaster. I kind of want to go back and do that again. And so they were setting Jayne up by making it seem like it was her fault. And on the day where, the Super Bowl 1980, they were like, Jayne, we're gonna put you in the best possible shot. We're gonna have you in a helicopter, and you're gonna get the best view. And then they put her up there to get rid of her. Just imagine being set up by your employer in that way. Like, we're going to put you
like, we need to get rid of her.
So make it so that she says
the helicopter's going to go down.
Sure. Absolutely. No, that's not what I'm saying. That they were going to make it so she says in the film, every time it was time to go to my shot, they went to Phyllis George instead. So they were getting rid of her from the entire broadcast. Every time it was like, okay, we went to Jayne, it didn't go to Jayne. They went to Phyllis George and the Ginger Man restaurant. So they set her up to put her in a helicopter so that the helicopter, she would be out of the way for the entire broadcast. And they minimized her role in that broadcast. Just imagine someone saying, oh my gosh, we want you to be the CEO, and we want you to get the corner office. Just go into the elevator and press the top floor, and someone will be there to greet you, to walk you in the door, and you get there, and it's mirror on the rooftop, and there's no one there, and the door closes behind you. That's the same concept of them getting rid of her on that very pivotal day where she was supposed to host the 1980 Super Bowl, but more importantly, they set her up to make it seem like it was her fault that she got fired. And afterwards, people in the airports, in the past, they were like, Jayne, I want my daughter to be like you. I want to grow up and be like you. Everyone was giving her that praise. Now they were like, Jayne, how could you mess this up for us? You are a hero. So they successfully turned her people against her. And there were athletes who had to fight for her on television because they knew what was happening to her, and they took opportunities to, during their interviews, to say, it's messed up what you did to Jayne Kennedy. So they were defending their friend, right? So all of that is in the feature film that I need to go raise money for, so y'all give me my pension. It's a lot. Because I have to go, every single thing in that film I had to research. I didn't have her say anything that I couldn't find corroborating evidence in the public record. So when I say that there were 70 people who were interviewed, that's from an article in People magazine that said exactly how many people were interviewed. It came from books, it came from Westlaw and LexisNexis from the court cases that were filed against her, that she had to file against other people, and it came from on-camera interviews that I found. So it was a team of 4 professors who are also related to her. At least my cousin Cameron, he's a PhD, he went to Harvard University here, in Massachusetts. My friend Ome Congo, who just left, he was here. He went to high school, we went to high school together, and he was one of the researchers. And then there was another brother from University of Albany who was a PhD in African American Studies, and another brother who is pursuing a PhD in Texas I went to college with. So this is very much a family affair. I have a high school affair, and like everyone from every chapter of my life, I'm like, okay, pick a piece of this pie, because we all gotta take a piece of because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to make a film and to do all the stuff that comes after making a film. Even it's hard. So.
Thank you. And this is what we're talking about these types of films and lifting her up. And so I'm curious, and then I want the audience to ask questions. I'm just curious. So when you approached Jayne to do this, what was her reaction? Was she really hungry to tell her story? Because this story, I didn't know. I don't know if the audience knew that she went through all of this. I just figured that she went off air and she was doing other. I didn't know. I mean, it makes sense, but what was it? What was your
she didn't
interaction?
go off air forever. Like the thing is that Jayne is also the first woman to ever host, I don't mean black woman, but woman to host a sports talk show. So she hosted Greatest Sports Legends for I think 7 years, and she's the first woman in American history to ever secure that role. That happened both that happened after CBS and NFL. So her career actually skyrocketed. She just decided, she unfortunately developed a condition called endometriosis, which is very painful. It's in your midsection. And so when she got married the second time, to her second husband, she just decided to start a family because the actual cure for endometriosis is to get pregnant because the growth hormones shrink the cells that are causing the pain in a woman's uterus. So she became the spokesperson for the Endometriosis Foundation, and she was kind of doing all this until about 1985, and then she just had so she was doing. She also auditioned to be the second Aunt Viv on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I remember her saying that from the interview. And she was also on Wonder Woman as the Black Wonder Woman, which is Nubia. And there's an action figure. If you look on eBay, there's an action figure they made of Nubia that was a lot like Jayne Kennedy, and they didn't pay her for the action figure. And I found it on eBay. It's like $400. Like I found everything that I'm saying. I have the evidence of what she's talking about, and she's accurate. If I had to make sure that my accusations of CBS were valid. But when I asked Jayne about it, Jayne has told this story to other people. She told the story to TV One. Most recently, she told the story to CBS because your girl called CBS on multiple occasions last summer, and I was like, you all are fantastic because you had the first African-American woman to become a sportscaster, but you treated her kind of crazy. And it'd be really great if you brought her back on and apologized to her, right? And I was, I'm a TV producer, I do a lot of things, but I do live in New York, and I have a lot of friends who work at CBS, and I called everyone I could call, and they brought her back this past February to host a pregame show for the most watched Super Bowl in American history. And she and Brent Musburger co-hosted that show. That segment was nominated for an Emmy. That segment won that Emmy about 6 weeks ago. And the last time that she was on CBS NFL Today or CBS Sports was when she was fired. So that's what true filmmaking, investigative journalism, and making a mission out of a film. It's a movement. Filmmaking is a movement. It moves people's emotions. And I remember one time I was watching the film Rosewood with my mom, and I remember we left the theater, and she's like, I'm going to bring my dry cleaning to a black dry cleaner just because we watched Rosewood. And I'm like, wow, Mom, I did, okay, maybe my mom was like, okay, but we were on a mission to find a black dry cleaner, but she was like, I gotta do something. After she watched Rosewood by John Singleton, directed by John Singleton. And it was an incredible film. And John, what's his name? Bing Rames looks a lot like my dad, so it's like, Bing Rames, that's why my mom was so passionate about it. She's like, you know, your dad was just like Bing Rames. So like, you know, she basically was attached to the entire story for a really serious reason, but she was convinced, and that's kind of the beginning of me wanting to be a filmmaker, was when I could see the emotions and what you can move people to do if you're effective at storytelling. But Jayne did tell the story before. We did a 5-hour pre-interview, and then after that, I crewed up everybody and cast everyone, all that kind of stuff. And then I actually called all the people who didn't know Jayne, you know, they were too young to know her, and I explained her story to them. Because I didn't want her to look at anybody who was working in the crew, and they give her a look of like, who's this lady? I wanted them to all look at her with a sense of deference and like, wow, it's you. And when she was leaving, she's like, this is the best set I've ever been on. I mean, that alone, I was ready to
I mean, it's important when you have a set like that, yes, and people are informed about that. So I want to open it up to questions. Anybody has any questions about this film?
You can do your statement too. I'm ready to go. Questions, comments? Go ahead, yes, way up there.
Jayne, I know you is such a great awesome.
Yes.
I'm positive that your passion for all the time as well was to become a filmmaker and be with it. And create a work. And I just want to say that I'm extremely proud of this it's wonderfully produced, wonderfully directed, and I'm excited to see the entire result.
Yes.
It's a great job.
And we made this one for $2,000, just so that you all
Wow,
know.
yeah.
It's not a lot of money. It's $10,000, and I actually got it on like shot for like less than $5,000. There are 3 DPs, one won a Peabody Award. Most people are from NYU and all of that. And yeah, I mean, like this is a big part of our education at the time we were at Boston Line. So I was raised in Roxbury, Massachusetts. I did all my summer programs at Roxbury Community College, where we used to have the festival all the time. And you know, our school's right down the street. You know, it's right down the street. There are several people in the audience who are from my high school. There's Jamita, there's Dawn. I think that's mostly everybody. Well, let me go. Oh yeah, okay, I see it now. Okay, I see the hairs on the side. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that we were at a really beautiful time in history where Black history is being taught in Boston public schools. I mean, I had African history classes, I had Latin American history classes. You know, I knew about Caribbean history. I knew about all kinds of stuff from teachers like Miss Washington and Mrs. Johnson, Miss Middleton. There were so many brilliant teachers and many more. That's being taken away from us, for our kids and our grandkids and nieces and nephews and all these other different people. And this is a movement to shape, you know, that psychology. So yeah, I mean, I remember, like, this is a story I always tell Jamita. We were about to take an algebra class, and we were so scared because we had like not prepared. I remember telling Jamita in like, was it 9th grade algebra class? I was like, don't worry, algebra means Algeria, and Algeria is in Africa, and that means that your ancestors built pyramids, so you can do this because it's inside of your blood. I remember like, you put the test in front of us, and I couldn't talk anymore after that. I remember saying this to you like right before, we were in 9th grade, I think it was like Mr., I forgot his name, I remember what he looks like. He looked like Homer Simpson. But we were so petrified, and I was like, no, algebra is inside of you. And that was the type of confidence that having that education built. And just, you know, stories of Jayne Kennedy, we heard of other Black people, and other people, period, will, you know, make it so people who are young now will know what to do with their life and their life force. Because it's not going to come to you, you have to go after it.
And that's the most important thing about making films like this, about being an independent filmmaker. I talk about this all the time, is that, you know, your work and the people, the filmmakers that are here, their work is lifting up these voices. And we need you to be able to research this history, to bring this history to us, so that it lives beyond, you know, anything, and that people can now use this film. You can use it as a teaching model. People will not forget Jayne Kennedy. And that's important that we don't, and that we know that there's a first, so that there can be a second, and there can be a third, and there can be a fourth. And that's one of the most important things.
And that's what I want to show you at the end of the film, all those other Black women sportscasters.
Right.
And, you know, I think many of them did know, because we called all of them up to ask them if they were willing to have their image in the film. Just, you know, I explained where the segment that they were going to be in. And then after that, I was like, I don't think they know what she had to go through, you know, so that they could be on SportsCenter and ESPN. Because they all have their own rights, you know, that they can wear their hair natural. They're wearing box braids, they're wearing kinky hair. I mean,
to constantly remember that because we're constantly going through it. You know, the battles are being fought for us to be doing what we're doing today, but we're also fighting certain battles.
Okay, we will always be fighting those battles until, you know, we figure out a different strategy than asking outside people for approval.
Exactly.
And that's a position that most people find themselves in, so. Any other questions? Sorry.
Yeah, my question is, do you know the Arizona Assistant Store Seven got on TV again after she was fired in 1980?
There were definitely people in the 90s, just because like Robert Roberts, Melissa Ford, and also she's a sports anchor, which is, the anchor is the third highest paid position at any station behind the general manager and the news director. So that's anything, that any type of anchor is the third highest paid position. So even if you're a reporter, the anchor position in the hierarchy of television news and sportscasting, the anchor position is definitely Robert Roberts. I believe Melissa Ford would count. I'm not exactly sure. But the thing, and what you're saying is really important because it's not really just the first person, it's the second, it's the third. It's not just Barack Obama, it's who's the second black president, who's the fifth black president, who's the seventh, like when does it become a normal thing and not just a flash in the pan?
Right. That deserves a all right, well, we don't have to go all that time, but we just want to thank you so much for your film,
And
for
for
your
4 hours to get here.
she just got, oh, the rain just came in at the last minute. Good work, but we just thank you. We're looking forward to the future.
Yes, absolutely, and other projects and stuff, so. There will be other films about other parties. I'm also the first person to run film on Chadwick Boseman, and he was a roommate of mine at Howard University. We had this House of Art, so that film is coming up next, and it's about his early years at Howard. And it's a documentary about him. I made all my first films with him. And tonight, Rivera, the woman from like, Walking Dead, Black Panther, all that. So yeah, that's my next.
So we'll keep your name.
Yeah, hold my name.
We'll
Find
your
me
name
on
close and we'll
Instagram.
see you again next year
Absolutely.
with your next film.
Yeah, I have other films. I have 20. I'll throw them all against the wall. But if you have any questions afterwards, just hit me up and we'll figure it out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming out.
Thank you.